Hello, my name is Ben.
And my name's Josh.
And welcome back to FPL Graduates, and welcome back to another video. Yes, it's another one. I hope you're just as shocked as we are, but we are absolutely grinding out YouTube. And today we're going to be telling you about all the bench options that you should be considering for your FPL team. Without further ado, let's get straight into it.
Okay, so kicking things off with a goalkeeper, it's ALPHONSE AREOLA. He was in our Hidden Gems video, but it doesn't mean he isn't a good bench option. 27% owned nearly now. He is very, very well known to the FPL community. He could be a starter for West Ham this season, right, Ben?
Yeah, and I mean, his stats actually weren't too bad either. Obviously, off the 2 starts, conceding 7. Let's not forget he had quite a few bench appearances last season as well. And with, the options that West Ham have in goal, I think he's probably the highest quality. Produced a lot of good saves and partnered with a £5 million keeper or even a £4.5 million keeper. You could have 2 starters for just $8.5 million, which I think is an absolute bargain and allows you to really further invest in your team going forwards.
Yeah, it's defo giving me Danny Ward vibes from last season. You know, a lot of people had him as their backup keeper, played him in the easier fixtures. He did come away with a couple of hauls as well, remember. These £4 million keepers can come away with the hauls if they're facing a lot of shots, getting a lot of saves, even saving penalties like Danny Ward did. So definitely a really, really strong option for your first keeper.
Okay, so our first defender that we're going to be talking about in terms of bench options is George BALDOCK. Now, 36 starts last season. We know he could be a potential slight rotation risk, but 36 starts is good nonetheless. 6.2% ownership. In terms of someone you want on your bench, you're looking at someone who, if it doesn't go right, their value won't decrease dramatically. And with some of these bench options, they're quite highly owned. And if they don't perform well, they may drop to 3.9 or 3.8 quite quickly. With George BALDOCK, it's not looking likely that will be the case.
Yeah, he's been in the Premier League before as well. Remember with Sheffield United when they were previously in the Premier League. So he's got a lot of experience. I expect him to play pretty much week in, week out. Obviously, the fixtures don't come as thick and fast like they do in the Championship. You know, they're probably going to be playing once a week, most weeks. So I think he will be pretty assured for minutes. Which is really what you need at the bare minimum. Like Ben says, it's really crucial you don't go for the highest owned defender, because if they do drop in price, you're just going to leave yourself in a world of trouble when trying to take them out your team. And speaking of a really, really high-owned £4 million defender, we have Amari Bell, currently with Jamaica on international duty in the Gold Cup. He has scored a goal as well in that, which has got a lot of the FPL community quite hyped up about him. As you can see by the 22.3% ownership, really, really high. He did start 44 games, though, last season, so you can see why. You know, very sustainable, very consistent. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, I know I just said going for the higher owned asset is a bit more of a risk in terms of losing value, but because Luton's fixtures are so good to start the season, in fact, they're top of the fixture ticker in terms of sort of teams with a nice run at the start of the season, that Amari Bell could actually come away with quite a few points and potentially a price rise. It is just very dependent on how Luton start the season and whether they really sort of start at home quite strongly. So yeah, I'd like to think and hope to think that Luton can keep a couple of clean sheets in their first 5 games. Okay, so next up we've got Jordan BEYER, and this is 3 out of 3 for the promoted size and a £4 million defender. Again, he's a little bit lower owned, 8.1% owned in a Vincent Kompany team that's actually very interesting. They are probably one of the strongest teams we've had out of the Championship in recent years. So he is pretty assured of his minutes. Again, similar to BALDOCK, he started 30. So let's say he had 15 games or so where he was not starting, potentially off the bench as well. Got 1 goal and 2 assists in the Championship last season. So again, it's a steady asset for 4 million. You can't expect too much, but Jordan BEYER definitely on the radar for the bench.
Yeah, as Ben mentioned, Burnley probably one of the strongest sides out of the promoted sides for sure. It'll be interesting to see if they can defensively sharpen up as well. They obviously conceded the least amount of goals last season in the Championship. So it'll be interesting to see if they get rolled over by these teams like Man City on the opening day. It's going to be very interesting. And obviously, it's like a contrast where you see in the top of the league versus the bottom of the league in the first 2 game weeks. So I think after the first 2 game weeks, we're going to have a really good idea of how this Burnley team might fare up against different kinds of opposition. Okay, so we'll move into midfield now, and this is probably one of the hardest areas to find a good bench option at the moment in FPL because there are just so many that we just don't really know about until we get into pre-season. Maybe some transfers are made. We're going to start off with Tanguy Ndombele. Obviously, he was on loan at Napoli last season, only the 8 starts and 22 sub appearances. It does tell us a lot already that his fitness is not quite there. We've seen it for quite a few years now with him, just not really up to scratch to start in those big games. However, though, he did get a goal. Relatively decent player. I think it's someone who could really fit into their system. But what do you think, Ben?
Yeah, again, it's very dependent. With a lot of teams, when we get a new manager, we are sort of hesitant and sort of a little bit aware that a lot could change in that football club over the period that Ange Postecoglou has brought in his philosophies at Spurs. I think he is a player that suits the style that Tottenham are looking to employ, which is why I think he may potentially get more starts. But obviously, it's very dependent on his mobility, his fitness, and how injuries over the past few seasons has affected him. So, in terms of an asset at 4.5 million, don't mind it at all for a bench option, but you just got to be aware that there is potential that you may have to move him on quicker than expected. Okay, so next up, we've got Tommy Doyle, and yes, he's currently at City, but he is rumoured to be getting a move away. And if he does, he could be a fantastic asset at 4.5 million. Obviously, got a lot of starts last year, got a few goals, a few assists, which is all you can really expect from a 4.5 million player.
Yeah, it's between him and James McAtee. They were the 2 loanees from Manchester City at Sheffield United last season. Doyle was the more defensive one, but Man City and Pep Guardiola are looking to keep McAtee at Manchester City this season. They see him as quite an important player, maybe to come off the bench and maybe in some of those cup games. So Tommy Doyle looks the most likely to return to Sheffield United, whether that be on loan or in a permanent deal. And like Ben said, 3 goals and 4 assists from a more of a defensive midfield position in the Championship is really nothing to be sniffed at. Next up, we do have Amad Diallo, obviously at Man United after a really, really successful loan spell at Sunderland. 13 goals and 3 assists in the Championship. Really, really good campaign. What was your thoughts about him, Ben? You were more of a Championship fan yourself. What are you thinking?
Yeah, he is a very special player, and I think he's probably good enough to be playing in the Premier League. I just don't think he's probably ready for Manchester United just yet. Scored a lot of goals, a lot of fantastic goals as well. He can really strike the ball, and I think he would suit a lot of those teams down in the bottom half of the division from last season in the Premier League. So wherever he may end up, and I do think he will get a move away, he's going to be definitely a viable option and potentially this year's Andreas Pereira.
You've heard it here first.
Okay, so moving on, we've got Chiquinho, and for me, he is potentially the 4.5 million pound player that could get the most starts out of all the guys we talked about. Yes, he got 8 starts last season, but yes, he was also injured for the majority of last season. Wolves are losing a couple of key players in positions that Chiquinho tends to take up in the wide areas. So I do believe at 4.5 million, he could get quite a few starts in this Wolves team. And even if he's on your FPL bench, I do think, it's a good option to go for. Not many people at all have brought him in. He's just 0.3% owned. So there's little to no risk with it. And well, Josh, he could be a decent option.
Yeah, he literally didn't play a single game last season. Like, he was injured for the whole season. The season prior, he did play in pre-season, got 2 assists against Chelsea, which is remarkable off the bench. I think they were 2-0 down and they brought it back to 2-2. So he has the potential to be quite lively. And if he does get those starts that we're saying, I think he could do some damage for Wolves, especially with their team at the moment. It's really depleted in terms of these attacking assets. They just don't really have any sort of go-to guys to get them goals and assists. So he could be that guy. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. Pre-season will be a really big sort of test for all these 4.5 million midfielders to see how good they are, how many minutes they're going to get. So we'll wait and see, and we'll come back around when pre-season's finished. Okay, so we'll move up to the forwards now. And the first up is Cameron Archer of Aston Villa at the moment. Again, it's someone that probably will get a move away out of Aston Villa this season. Obviously, was on loan towards the back end of last season at Middlesbrough, who had a really good push towards those playoffs and played really well up front with Chuba Akpom. 20 starts in the Championship last season, 11 goals, 6 assists, not numbers to be sniffed at. Michael Carrick playing really, really attacking football. It'd be interesting to see whether he gets another Championship loan or if he gets loaned to a lower Premier League side. So I feel like he could do some business maybe as a rotational piece at something like Luton. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, Aston Villa are 1 injury away from Cameron Archer being a pivotal player for them.
Yeah.
He's off the back of a really good international break as well with England, and I do believe that he has the confidence potentially to do some good things in pre-season and convince Emery that maybe he should stay and be a part of this first team at Aston Villa. We'll have to wait and see. This is one I'd definitely keep on your watch list during pre-season, because I get a feeling that he could pop up with a few goals and he could eventually get an opportunity at Aston Villa. Okay, so finally, just like in the last video, we've gone for Balogun. Again, 4.5 million. He could get his chance this season if he moves away from Arsenal. And wherever he goes, anywhere in the league really below Arsenal, and he's going to do some serious business. Got a lot of goals in Ligue 1 last season, 21 to be exact, which is a really good number. There's not many behind a certain Kylian Mbappe in that league as well. He could be really decent this season. Josh, tell me a bit more about Balogun.
Yeah, me and you are quite hyped about this man. 4.5 million. He's an American international. If you haven't seen him playing for them already, he's been picking up some international goals there too. Just really, really exciting player. Can finish a lot of chances. So I think at a team like, personally, I think Crystal Palace would be the absolute perfect team for him, with the likes of Elise, Eze behind him, creating loads of chances. It'd just be a match made in heaven. Whether they can afford the 40 to 50 million pound price tag that Arsenal have put on him is another question, though. So we'll have to wait and see. I feel like this one might not be concluded by game week 1. I feel like we might see him move towards deadline day, which may suggest that, he'll probably go on loan maybe. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously. But I think this is like the golden opportunity in terms of 4.5 million pound forwards. Okay, so that wraps up the best bench options for your FPL teams this season in FPL. Let us know who you've currently got on your bench. I'm sure this will change a lot in a few weeks' time when we have pre-season and we sort of know what teams are playing who and who they're going for and all that jazz.
Yeah, obviously it is crucial to make sure you get your bench right in FPL. You never know when Pep Roulette or Mikel Arteta is going to change things up in his team. So make sure you have sorted your bench out and you know who you're going to go for. But yeah, as always, please remember to like, comment and subscribe. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
later.